This is an election year. And during election years, politicians tend to use the immigration issue to scare people with words like amnesty in hopes that it will whip up votes. Keep in mind that millions of us, myself included, go back generations in this country. With ancestors who put in the painstaking effort to become citizens. And we don't like the notion that anyone might get a free pass to American citizenship. But here's the thing. Millions of people who have come forward and worked to get right with the law under this policy. They've been living here for years, two in some cases, even decades. So leaving the broken system the way it is, that's not a solution. In fact, that's the real amnesty. Pretending we can deport 11 million people, or build a wall without spending tens of billions. Of dollars of taxpayer money is abetting what is really just factually incorrect. It's not. Going to work. It's not good for this country. It's a fantasy that offers nothing to help the middle class. And demeans our tradition of being both a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. In the end, it is my firm belief that immigration is not something to fear. We don't have to wall ourselves off from those who may not look like us right now. Or pray like we do, or have a different last name. Because being an American is about something more than that. What makes us Americans is our shared commitment to an ideal that all of us are created equal. All of us have a chance to make of our lives what we will. And every study shows that whether it was the Irish or the Poles, or the Germans, or the Italians, or the Chinese, or the Japanese, or the Mexicans, or the Kenyans, whoever showed up, over time, by a second generation, third generation, those kids are Americans. They do look like us because we don't look one way. We don't all have the same last names, but we all share a creed and we all share a commitment to the values that founded this nation. That's who we are. And that is what I believe most Americans recognize. So here's the bottom line. We've got a very real choice that America faces right now. We will continue to implement the existing programs that are already in place. We're not going to be able to move forward with the expanded programs that we wanted to. Move forward on because the Supreme Court was not able to issue a ruling at this stage. And now we've got a choice about who we're going to be as a country, what we want to teach our kids. And how we want to be represented in Congress and in the White House. We're going to have to make a decision about whether we are a people who tolerate the hypocrisy of a system where the workers who pick our fruit or make our beds never have the chance to get right with the law, or whether we're going to give them a chance. Just like our forebears had a chance to take responsibility and give their kids a better future. We're going to have to decide whether we're a people who accept the cruelty of ripping children from their parents' arms, or whether we actually value families and keep them together for the sake of all of our communities. We're going to have to decide whether we're a people who continue to educate the world's brightest. Students in our high schools and universities, only to then send them away to compete against us, or whether we encourage them to stay and create new jobs and new businesses right here in the United States. These are all the questions that voters now are going to have to ask themselves. And are going to have to answer in November. These are the issues that are going to be debated by candidates across the country, both congressional candidates as well as the presidential candidates. And in November, Americans are going to have to make a decision about what we care about and who we are. I promise you this, though sooner or later, immigration reform will get done. Congress is not going to be able to ignore America forever. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I can say that with confidence because we've seen our history. We get these spasms of politics around immigration and fear-mongering. And then our traditions and our history and our better impulses kick in. That's how we all ended up here. Because I guarantee you, at some point, every one of us has somebody in our background who people didn't want coming here, and yet here we are. And that's what's going to happen this time. The question is, do we do it in a smart, rational, sensible way, or we just keep on kicking the can down the road? I believe that this country deserves an immigration policy that reflects the goodness of the American people. And I think we're going to get that. Hopefully, we're going to get that in November. All right. I'll take 2 questions. 2 questions. Go ahead. Question, thank you. President Obama, I'll take 2 questions. Go ahead. Question, thank you. Realistically, what do you see is the risk of deportation for these more than 4 million people? I mean, you say we can't deport 11 million. This is 4 million, and there's a chunk of time here before something else. President Obama, well, let me just be very clear. What was unaffected by today's ruling or lack of a ruling? Is the enforcement priorities that we put in place. And are enforcement priorities that have been laid out by Secretary Jeh Johnson. At the Department of Homeland Security are pretty clear. We prioritize criminals. We prioritize gangbangers. We prioritize folks who have just come in. What we don't do is to prioritize people who've been here a long time. Who are otherwise law-abiding, who have roots and connections in their communities. And so those enforcement priorities will continue. The work that we've done with the DREAM Act kids, those policies remain in place. So what this has prevented us from doing is expanding the scope of what we've done with the DREAM Act kids. Keep in mind, though, that even that was just a temporary measure. All it was doing was basically saying to these kids, You can have confidence that you are not going to be deported, but it does not resolve your ultimate status. That is going to require congressional action. So, although I'm disappointed by the lack of a decision today by the Supreme Court, a deadlock. This does not substantially change the status quo, and it doesn't negate what has always been the case. Which is, if we're really going to solve this problem effectively, we've got to have Congress pass a law. I have pushed to the limits of my executive authority. We now have to have Congress act. And hopefully, we're going to have a vigorous debate during this election. This is how democracy is supposed to work, and there will be a determination as to which direction we go in. As I said, over the long term, I'm very confident about the direction this country will go in, because we've seen this in the past. If we hadn't seen it in the past, America would look very different than it looks today. But whether we're going to get this done now, soon, so that this does not continue to be this divisive force in our politics. And we can get down to the business of all pulling together to create jobs, and educate our kids. And protect ourselves from external threats, and do the things that we need to do to ensure a better future for the next generation. That's going to be determined in part by how voters turn out and who they vote for in November. All right. One more question. Go ahead. Question, 2 practical, going forward questions. Number 1, are you going to be able to do anything more at all for Immigrants going forward in terms of executive action before the election of the next president? And number 2, do you in any way take this as some Republicans have presented this? As a slap at your use of executive authority, this tie vote? And will this in any way circumscribe how aggressively or forcefully you use executive authority for the remainder of your time in office? President Obama, okay. On the specifics of immigration, I don't anticipate that there are additional executive actions that we can take. We can implement what we've already put in place that is not affected by this decision. But we have to follow, now. What has been ruled on in the Fifth Circuit because the Supreme Court could not resolve the issue? And we're going to have to abide by that ruling until an election and a confirmation. Of a ninth justice of the Supreme Court so that they can break this tie. Because we've always said that we are going to do what we can lawfully through executive action. But we can't go beyond that. And we've butted up about as far as we can on this particular topic. It does not have any impact on, from our perspective, on the host of other issues that we're working on. Because each one of these issues has a different analysis. And is based on different statutes or different interpretations of our authority. So, for example, on climate change, that's based on the Clean Air Act and the EPA and previous Supreme Court rulings, as opposed to a theory of prosecutorial discretion that in the past, has every other president has exercised. And the Supreme Court wasn't definitive one way or the other on this. I mean, the problem is they don't have a ninth justice. So that will continue to be a problem.